The hum of fluorescent lights buzzed in Mason's ears as he leaned against the service desk of the 24-hour supermart on the outskirts of Dulwich. The clock on the wall blinked 11:59 p.m. His first graveyard shift. Minimum wage. Lonely aisles. Fluorescent ghosts. Outside, the parking lot shimmered under amber lights, empty except for a rusting pickup truck and a row of grocery carts that trembled slightly in the wind. Mason stared out through the sliding doors. He wasn't afraid of the dark. But he was afraid of what the dark could remember. The store manager, Carver, handed him a laminated schedule. Stock the shelves. Watch the monitors. Clean up spills. Don't fall asleep. If you hear humming from aisle 12, ignore it. Mason blinked. What? Carver didn't smile. Ignore it. Then he left. The clock struck midnight. It was around 2 a.m. when Mason heard it. A low, steady hum. He was restocking cereal boxes in aisle 3 when it started. The sound was faint at first, like the far-off whisper of static. But it grew louder, pulling at his attention. He dropped a box of Cheerios and stood up. It came from aisle 12. He walked slowly, each footstep echoing too loud in the stillness. The store's layout was a perfect grid, symmetrical and wide. Aisle 12, tucked near the back, hadn't been visited since he started. It looked like any other aisle. Cleaning supplies. Mops. Bleach. Buckets. But the lights flickered overhead. One bulb blinked in a rhythmic stutter, like Morse code. And the air was cold. Far colder than the rest of the store. He took one step into the aisle. The humming stopped. Every product on the shelves was turned backward, labels facing the wall. He didn't scream. But he walked quickly back to the service desk, heart hammering. On the monitor, aisle 12 showed nothing. Just empty space. Her name tag said, Maria. She arrived just after 3 a.m., wheeling a bucket and mop. Short, weathered, with deep lines around her eyes, she didn't speak much. New? She asked, voice low. Mason nodded. She wrung out the mop. Don't go into the basement. He frowned. We have a basement. She nodded once. Behind the stockroom. Locked. For a reason. Mason tried to laugh it off. This place is full of warnings, huh? Maria didn't laugh. Later that night, as he returned from cleaning the dairy aisle, he saw Maria at aisle 12. She stood frozen, staring into the flickering overhead light. Her mop lay abandoned on the floor. Maria, he called. She turned slowly. Her eyes were wide, unblinking. Her mouth moved, but no sound came out. Then she walked away. The next night, she didn't show up. Carver said she quit by the 5th shift. Mason stopped trying to pretend everything was fine. The cameras glitched randomly, always around aisle 12. Boxes rearranged themselves overnight. The humming came and went. Then he found the tape. It was unlabeled. Hidden behind the breaker box. Old VHS. He still didn't know why he brought an old VCR from home. Maybe he expected it. Maybe part of him already knew. He played it in the back office. The footage was grainy, time-stamped from a decade ago. It showed a young boy, blonde, nervous, wearing a supermart uniform. Mason didn't recognize him. He walked into aisle 12. Stood still. Looked up. The lights flickered. Then he screamed. The screen went black. When the video resumed, he was gone. The aisle was empty. The tape ended. Mason rewound it. Paused. At the moment the lights flickered, in one frame, a face. Behind the boy. White. Expressionless. Eyes like hollow glass. That eye in the break room, hidden behind an old vending machine, Mason found a spiral-bound journal. Entries were dated between 2008 and 2010. March 15, 2009, heard the humming again. Carver says ignore it, but I saw a girl in white on the monitors. June 2, 2009. Maria said the humming is a warning. Don't look her in the eye. September 7, 2009, I opened the basement door. Something followed me back up. The last entry. November 13, 2009, I'm not me anymore. She's in my dreams. She hums. Carver knows. He always knew. There were ink smudges on the final page. And faintly, beneath the scribbles, in different handwriting. Help me. Mason started losing time. An hour would pass and he'd have no memory of what he'd done. Shelves would be stocked without him touching them. He'd wake up standing in front of aisle 12, the air sharp with cold. Then one night, he found something carved into his arm. Not fresh, scarred. Old. Faded. For words, you locked the door. His nightmares worsened. He saw a hallway underwater. Children pounding on glass. A girl in white, floating, her hair haloed around her like ink in water. She whispered something he couldn't understand. Until one night, he did. Why did you leave us? Rain. That's what Mason remembered first. Not the kind that patters gently against a window, but the violent, pounding kind that turns streets into rivers and buildings into tombs. He was 17. His clothes were soaked, and his heart pounded with panic as he sprinted through the trees behind Dalridge Orphanage, a flashlight bouncing wildly in his shaking hand. They had said it would be a heavy storm. But no one had predicted the dam would break. No one had prepared for the flood. He had volunteered to help with crowd control, ushering kids to the gymnasium. That was the safest place, they'd said. Elevated. Reinforced. But the water rose faster than anyone expected. By the time the staff realized the basement was taking on water, it was too late. The power cut out. Screams echoed down the hallways. Then came the order, lock the lower levels. Seal off the basement. Keep the others from panicking. He hadn't wanted to do it. He remembered that now. He screamed at the headmistress. Pleaded. Cried. But she handed him a ring of keys and said coldly, lock it. Or we all die. And so he had. He ran door to door, turning keys with trembling hands, sealing off each hallway as the water crept higher. Then he reached the final door, the one that led to the rec room, where a handful of children had been playing hours earlier. He hesitated. He heard them pounding on the glass, small fists thudding. He saw her. A girl in a white dress. The same face. The same eyes. Mason, she screamed, though he didn't know how she knew his name. He could have opened it. But he didn't. He turned the key and locked it. And then he ran. The supermart no longer felt like a store. It felt like a mausoleum. Mason could no longer distinguish between memory and haunting. Each shift bled into the next. The walls whispered. The cameras showed figures that vanished on approach. Aisle 12 wept condensation like cold breath. He stood there now, facing it. The humming returned. He walked forward, slow but determined. This time, he wouldn't turn back. The lights dimmed as he stepped into the aisle. He touched the shelves. Frostbitten. Silent. Then, her. She stood at the end, wearing white. Wet hair clinging to her face. Eyes wide with betrayal. Why? She whispered. I was scared, Mason said, voice cracking. I was told to. You left us. The shelves began to rattle. Lights exploded above. The ground trembled beneath him. I didn't know you. You locked the door. She stepped closer. Around her, the air pulsed with water, impossible underwater echoes, like distant screaming. Mason fell to his knees. "I'm sorry." Everything stopped. Silence. She knelt in front of him, touched his face, and smiled. "Then help us leave." He didn't remember walking through the employee door that led to the basement. Only that he was suddenly there. The lock had rusted open, as if time itself had decided the moment had come. The stairs beneath were steep, lined with black mildew and years of dust. His flashlight flickered as he descended, the air growing damp and still. At the base, water pooled ankle-high. The walls bore scratch marks. And there, in the dark, dozens of eyes. Children. Pale, soaked, translucent. Watching. She stood among them. The girl in white. "You remembered," she said. "I had to. They can't leave until you let them." Mason looked around at the spirits. Some clutched stuffed animals. Others stared at the floor. All carried the weight of drowning. He took a deep breath and whispered, "Then I'll stay." The girl tilted her head. "That's not what we want." She held out a key. "The door, Mason. Unlock it." He turned the key. Not a physical one, there was no lock in front of him, but the one inside. The door in his mind. The one memory had tried to bury beneath years of denial. A blinding light filled the basement. The water shimmered, then receded. The children began to fade, their forms rising like mist, no longer tethered. The girl in white looked at Mason, her eyes soft now. "You remembered. That's all we needed." He nodded, tears running freely down his face. "I'm sorry," he said. She smiled. Then she was gone. He woke at the service desk. Sunlight filtered through the windows. The parking lot sparkled with morning dew. Carver walked in, whistling, and gave Mason a puzzled look. "You stayed the whole shift?" he asked. Mason blinked. "Yes," he said. Something was different. The air felt lighter. The lights, brighter. Aisle 12. Silent. And in the break room, where the vending machine once stood, there was only a blank wall. He never saw the girl again. But sometimes, when the rain came heavy, he'd feel a cool breath on his cheek and hear a distant hum. And he'd whisper, "I didn't forget." The dead never haunted him again. Because he had finally remembered. And that was all they'd ever wanted.